Hello! In this video, I'm going to teach you how to make a robot in Illustrator. This will serve as your very first introduction to using Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to start super basic. If you have used Illustrator before, this might be a review. But better that than going too fast and losing people. So, first of all, I like to have Illustrator and Photoshop down here on my dock, so they're always easy to find. If you want to do that, you just go to the app here in your apps list, right click, and then it's already pinned here. I'll find one that I haven't pinned yet. You would go and then pin to taskbar, and that's how you would make it always stay right there. Next, you need to decide where you're going to keep all of your files for this class because you're going to have a lot of them. So if I were you, I would make a folder on your desktop. Just right click, new folder. If you have a different idea of where you would like to keep them, that's totally fine. So then click on Illustrator. If it's the first time you've ever opened it, it's going to take a while. It's a very big program with lots of things to remember. So then you do create new. If you don't have a size in mind that you know you need, I would just start with a standard size, like we're just going to have one artboard here, like 8.5 by 11. Sometimes in this class, I'll have an actual size, and sometimes I won't. So if you look at advanced options, CMYK is what you need for printing, whereas RGB is more what you would want if you know you're only going to be using it on screen, like for a website or something. 300, this is pixels per inch. That's the resolution. I would just leave it at 300. That's the best printing resolution. And then default. Click create. And then it will give you a new artboard starting off blank. Now, there's a couple things you need to do before starting any project to get set up. So first you come to Window, Toolbars, Advanced. Make sure this Advanced toolbar is showing. Otherwise, you're not going to have as many tools and options. Toolbars, Advanced. So over here is the Layers panel. If you don't have that open, you need to open that. So there's lots and lots of different little windows that have different tools in them. So all of those are under the Windows file or Windows tab. So make sure your layers are open. The checkboxes show you which ones are open and which are not. You also will probably want swatches. That's your color swatches over here. Color. Make sure you have color. Some other helpful ones might be transparency and gradient, but you don't really need those yet. Okay, so in your layers, this is the new layer button. This will help you arrange your objects. You'll have lots of different objects, so in the long run, it will be helpful to organize those on different layers. And then you can like hide some layers with this little eyeball. Clicking on that. If you want to select everything on a layer, click out here to the right. Well, there's nothing there yet. So let's say I already made a box here. If you click that, it will select everything on the layer. Okay, I'm going to delete. So there's only a couple of tools that you need to worry about for this first session. You need to know how to use the selection tool. That's just the basic arrow. That's a black arrow. I'm also going to teach you some key commands that will make your life much easier as you work in Illustrator. And you will have a key command or keyboard shortcut quiz eventually. So I would keep like a notepad or something and just write those down as I teach you any new keyboard shortcuts so that you have a running list. So I'm going to put a text box over here. Ooh, that's little. So V, just the letter V, nothing else with it, is your selection tool. A, just hit the letter A with your pinky, is the direct select tool. And I'll tell you what that means in a minute. So I'm going to leave that text box over there for now. And then mostly what you're going to be using for your robot project. Oh, first of all, you always want to save as you go because these programs can crash at any time and you don't want to lose all of your hard work. So for this class, I always want you to name things in the same way. By the time you get lots and lots of files, it's helpful to have a naming system that's consistent. So I want you to use your last name, my last name is Granberg, underscore, and then the name of the project. So Granberg Robot. I'm going to save it. This .ai is an Illustrator file. Actually don't want to keep this. Put it in your folder wherever you've decided to keep graphic design projects for this class. Save. Okay, and that brings me to another keyboard shortcut. So Control plus S is save. So I want you to use both hands for working in Illustrator. This is a two-handed job. That's part of why you need a mouse. Your left or non-dominant hand needs to be on the keyboard with your pinky at control. So your pinky always lives on control. That's where you keep your left or non-dominant hand while working here. It's like if you play a video game, you need both hands in their correct place in order to play the game efficiently and not die. So in order to not die in Illustrator, if this was a game, you need to keep your pinky on control. So then, as you're working, just occasionally just get in the habit of like every few minutes hitting Control S with your pinky and whatever other finger is comfortable for you. Oops. Okay. Then you're going to make a robot of your own design, however you want, with shapes. Now, see this little tool that looks like a brush? Just pretend that doesn't exist. You're never going to use the brush tool for a long time because it's a crutch. It's not precise. It's not efficient. It's not going to be good for most things. If we have time near the end of the semester, we will do a digital painting project, and that is the only thing where we will ever use this. We're going to use the pen tool for almost everything else. But we're going to start with the shape tool. So if you hold down, click and hold on any of these, it'll give you some more options so you can switch between the shapes. Polygon, rounded rectangle. So like, let's say you want the head of your robot to be a rounded rectangle. You can drag that out. Down here is the color, the fill color and the stroke color. whichever one is on top is the one that's active. So if I have this one on top and then I click on a different swatch, it'll change that color. But if I have the stroke color on top and then I click a swatch, it'll give that shape a different color stroke. Up here in this toolbar is the stroke weight. So you can make it skinnier or thicker. You can just select, select how much weight you want your stroke to have right there. So you're going to combine your shapes in such a way that it looks like a robot, however you want. So you need to have a robot with limbs, you know, arms and legs of some sort. You can have more arms and legs. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be like a human. But it needs to have some kind of limbs or some way, you know, it needs to move. How would a robot move around? And you need to have one prop. So robot body plus a prop. So the prop could be a hat, or it could have a dog on a leash, or it could have a flower in its hand because it wants to impress some other robot that it wants to ask out on a date. So whatever the prop is up to you. Have fun with it. If you want to get crazy, you could add a gradient. You don't have to add a gradient, but you could. So over here on the left, this is the gradient tool. So you can make a gradient just with that, but you can also open the gradient window. You can kind of tuck these in together. I think it's called, I don't know what it's called. But if you just like drag it, you can have it out by itself, or you can put it up in here with these other windows. So when I hit the letter V, it goes back to my direct select tool, and you have to select the object to put a stroke on it, and the fill color has to be on top. If the stroke color is on top, nothing's going to happen. But down here, you see the colors of your gradient. There's also different kinds of gradients. It can be a radial gradient, a linear gradient. I'm not going to worry about this freeform one right now because it's confusing. But then let's say you want to change the direction of the gradient. Right now it's going horizontally. You can click on this tool right there. But if I hover over this tool, if I hover over the tool without clicking, see how it has a little G in parentheses right there? That tells you what the keystroke command is for that tool. So if you just hit the letter G, it'll bring you into the gradient tool where you can change the color. So then you come down over here to the gradient tool window. If I double click on this little circle, it'll pop up this swatch box, and I can click on a different color to change the color of the gradient. Click on the other one. So I want the gradient to be orange to red. And then if I click G again, I'm back on the, or no, I'm still on it. But if you get off that tool for some reason, okay, so if I hover inside of my shape, I can click and hold and drag. Click and hold and drag, and you can change the direction of the gradient, and you can change how spread out it is. See, I can change this line so that the gradient is more gradual. Okay. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to tell you with the shape tool. Any of these shapes, if you hold down Shift while you click and drag it, it will maintain kind of perfect proportions. So it will be a perfect circle if you're trying to make a circle. Or if you're trying to make a square, it'll keep it as a square while you hold shift. But if you don't hold shift, you can shape it however you want into a rectangle. So to easily undo things, you click Control Z. That will be one of your most helpful tools. Control plus Z. Undo. I told you G is gradient. So shift plus control plus Z is redo. So if I hit control Z and then I decided that I didn't want to undo it, I want that action back, then I would do shift control Z to get it back. So you can toggle between control Z and shift control Z if you want to like compare how two different effects looked. Okay. Don't worry about this selection tool right now. There's really no reason for it in this lesson. But just keep it in mind that this white arrow is the direct select tool, and we will be using that later. So I'm going to show you some examples of robot projects that some of my past students made really quickly. I'm going to go to my old website from last year. Graphic Design 1. Here are some of the robots my students made last year. Aren't they cute? So this one has some gradients. She didn't use strokes. There's a dog, stars. This one has a skateboard as its prop and like freeform hair. So play around with what you can do. This person made a square and rotated it. You can rotate things. This guy has a hat. This person made a three-dimensional effect on their shapes. You don't have to do that, but you're welcome to try. I feel like that's a real like character of some sort, but I don't know who. This one has fiery stuff coming out of its feet. So you can see they were pretty creative and different in how they made those. So play around with the shape tool. You can layer things. If you click and drag, this dotted marquee appears. That is one way that you can select multiple objects at once and move them together. Like, let's say I love the placement here. I want those to stay in the same position in relation to each other, but I want to move them to a different place on my artboard. So click and drag. If those are the only two things on that layer, you can also click over here to the right, and it will select those. Oh, but my text is over here. Like, I would probably want to move my text to the bottom layer so I don't move them at the same time. So to do that, I would click it, select the object, which is a text box in this case, and then this little colored square represents what you have selected at the time. So click on that, drag it down to the layer you want it to be on, and there you go. Then I can select everything on this layer and move it. Or I could hide the text if I don't want that to show. So have fun, be creative, and I look forward to seeing your robot.